Thank you for granting us this interview, for giving us this time. Just as a kick-off point, Professor, firstly, in your own words, where is the state of the economy? Where are we as a country?
Well, to understand the state of the Zimbabwe economy, we need to start from the global economy. After all, we're part of the global village, and we're impacted directly by changes and movements in that global village. First of all, what we've seen since the third, perhaps even more so, the fourth quarter of last year, is rising global inflation. You saw it in Europe, in the US, in the large developed countries. This was largely attributed to the success of the vaccination program and also to the opening up of global value chains. So inflation started going up, and then the oil price also started going up, and we're a net oil importer. And of course, these global inflation and prices started moving up faster due to the global political tensions that we see in Eastern Europe. So that global picture is impacting Zimbabwe through a variety of channels. We call it global spillovers. Those spillovers are taking place through the fuel channel, the price of oil, or fuel in terms of petrol and diesel, in terms of final product that we use here, but also through other products that make use of those fuels as inputs, but also it impacts the cost of logistics. So that's one channel, logistics, fuel, but mainly driven by the global oil price. Also, we're seeing another channel, which is through the fertilizer prices, where fertilizer prices have risen, price of urea, price of natural gas, which is also an input, or that is another channel as well. The other channel is the direct food imports, where they're looking at wheat and other foods. The prices of those goods have also gone up. So you do have this global risk, risky environment. And we're already hearing noises around the world that actually the whole world, may be heading towards a global food challenge, and there's need for global coordination. The same way that we got into global coordination regarding COVID, now everyone is saying let's have a global coordination around food security. And certainly that's something that we should listen out to as a nation as well. We're part of the global economy. So that's one thing. So there's going back to inflation now. We are seeing the US basically experiencing the highest level of inflation in the last 40 years, since 1982. The same thing applies to the UK. And I'm just using those as examples just to show you where we are. So inflation globally is being transmitted into Zimbabwe. So we have, through the channels that I just explained, that there is inflation that we're importing. It is part of the challenges that we face. That's the nature of the world, and that will take a while, I think, to really calm down and resolve. And as you see as we experience rising interest rates in the global economies, that tends to suck liquidity out of emerging markets. That's a normal phenomenon, that whenever you see rising interest rates in the larger countries, that sucks liquidity and investment, especially out of stock markets and other areas, out of the emerging markets, and we won't be immune to that. That's just our reality. Now coming then closer home, in terms of the state of the economy, we had forecasted growth of 5.5% for 2022. Of course, we're re-examining our assumptions, given what we see in terms of the global economy, given what we see in terms of the domestic economy, all the speculation on the power market, which has been fueling inflation and therefore destabilizing the certainty of certain investments within the economy. So we are looking at those assumptions, and we'll be announcing any revisions going forward. I tend to do this only twice a year. So you wait for the midterm budget review or fiscal review, which I will deliver in July. That's when I'll announce any changes in our GDP growth focus. But as we see things, that the Zimbabwe economy is still on that recovery trajectory, which was established last year in 2021, where we saw growth of over 7%. We should see again positive growth this year, but we will announce a figure for 2022. Others have already gone out and started announcing figures, but those figures are also positive, so we are also happy with that, even though they are downward revision from our 5.5%. But we will come up with our revised figure in July this year when I present the fiscal review statement halfway through the year.
Yeah, just to interject here a bit there, I hear you on the revised figures. Should we brace up for a huge margin downwards, or what should we expect as a nation?
No, I don't want to preempt anything. We are working out our figures. We're working out our numbers. You know why I'm saying that? Because of which was my next point. I highlighted the negative side of the global economy in terms of the global spillovers, imported inflation, and other things. There are also positive sides, which is what then is going to balance out our growth trajectory through the mining sector. We're seeing buoyant prices for gold, which is a flight to quality type mineral. As they say, whenever there are challenges around the world, buy gold. Don't think, buy gold. So we're seeing that happening at the moment. And then the base metal prices are up as well. Even coal prices are up. So we are seeing robust commodity price trends headed upwards. Prices firming up, and they're very robust and steady on the mining sector. So that will support our export revenues and support our balance of payments. So we have on one hand, we should have a strong balance of payments, in terms of export growth performance, but we have to balance that against the inflationary impact of imported inflation on the other. So that we have a balanced picture. So in terms of our growth projections, we have to take those sides into two. So let's not speculate as yet.
All right. Professor, Vision 2030 is about improving the livelihoods of the ordinary people, the day-to-day lives. Where would we say we are in terms of doing that as a nation?
You know what? As long as we can sustain the kind of growth figures that we've been projecting, we're well on our way to achieving Vision 2030, that of an upper middle income economy by that year, with GDP per capita above 3,500 US dollars or equivalent per person per capita. So we're well on our way. We need a growth rate of just over 5% to achieve that. As long as we can achieve that on average, we will get there. We're already a lower middle income economy. We're already there. We're already now want to move to the next bracket, which is upper middle income. So it's a bit of a stretch, but we can do it. Other countries, for instance, in East Africa and other parts of Africa, they achieve growth rates of 5% very easily. Surely we can do it. And through the policies that we've adopted, we can do it. A critical policy that we've adopted is that of investment, public sector investment. So we have now devoted at least 4-5% of GDP in terms of our public sector investment program. That's what is going on, whether look at the roads, look at our dams and whatever. That is critical for supporting growth. There are policies in terms of support for industry, for agriculture and so forth. All that is very pro-growth policies. Not that we've forgotten about protecting the vulnerable as well. We've not forgotten that. Whenever we have challenges on the food front, we provide food for the vulnerable in terms of our food assistance program, in terms of support for the children who cannot afford school fees through the BIM program, or healthcare for the elderly, cash transfers again for the vulnerable. So we have a robust social protection program which we've maintained, and we try to protect the vulnerable as we focus on growth. So I think we're well on our way to achieving that balanced growth. It's never easy to achieve inclusive growth that doesn't leave anyone behind. But the intention is there. You can see it, and you have results on the ground. Just look at the impact of devolution on the ground. That you have seen a lot of projects come up, whether it's schools, whether it's boreholes, whether it's health centers, almost in every district coming up slowly but surely. Some of them quite fast, in fact. Other people are running, other districts are running. So devolution is working, making sure that no one is left behind, and all of that is driving growth, lifting livelihoods, lifting average incomes.
Professor, the recent policy pronouncements by government to protect the local currency and mixed reactions rather from the public. Can you assure Zimbabweans that things are under control? There is a lot of panic among the public.
The public shouldn't panic. We've got things under control, and we are acting as a government to really assure the public that all is in order for the betterment of everyone's life, frankly. So when you look at it, in every policy, there are often what you call winners and losers. But what we do is we want to make sure that when you put all the policies together, there are more winners than losers. Even losers end up finding opportunities elsewhere over time. That's really the how we should judge policies. So if we run through the policies that we announced, which were actually announced by the head of state, the president, Dr. Mnangagwa, those were, in our view, a good set of policies. First of all, designed to prick the speculative bubble in the parallel market, and also the speculative bubble that was emerging, linking the parallel market to the stock market. So that was the first order of business. What was happening was that then the intermediation process in our monitoring sector was getting some interference, or rather was beginning to be broken, in the sense that some of the liquidity that the sector was now extending was ending up in the speculative market rather than in the real sector. It's called the monetary transmission mechanism. It was getting some broken, it was getting interfered with. So that speculative behavior is what we try to deal with using this instrument of saying, look, no more lending for a while, let's take a pause while we investigate to see who has been lending in the areas that they're not supposed to lend towards, frankly, which is speculative activity. At the same time, tightening regulation around the stock market, which is a very important market. That's the equity market for long-term investments, but we want to make sure that it is not a source of speculative bubbles which are harmful to the economy in the long run. So that action was necessary, and 2 days ago, the suspension has been lifted by the central bank to make sure that again, lending can resume. But of course, investigations continue in the areas where it's been found that there's been some misdemeanors that were being perpetrated by whomsoever. So tight regulation is critical in this area, but also in a sense, what you call prudential regulation, which when you really try to focus to see where banks are directing credit, that will be critical going forward, and that's what the central bank will be doing in terms of that prudential regulation framework. So that was the first policy. The second policy was around making sure that, again, we can promote the use of a domestic currency, but also we did affirm that we have a dual currency, that we have partial dollarization. So sometimes I get intrigued when I see discussions around, are we dollarizing, are we not dollarizing? Oh, yeah. We have the US dollar already. We have the Zim dollar already. We have both currencies, and we urge citizens to use both of them. They are both your currencies for now, and let's make sure that we can make use of them. We are aware of certain preferences and so forth, given our history of hyperinflation or history of dollarization. You recall a time when we only had really the US dollar circulating in the economy, and we had a serious situation with deflation, where we had negative inflation, low growth, with a huge current account a deficit as a result of using a strong currency on an emerging economy such as Zimbabwe. Now we have both currencies, and both are serving a good purpose, and let's make use of them. So what you see at the moment is a strong current account position. Our current account is a surplus. We've maintained a very tight fiscal policy in terms of on the fiscal front, and monetary policy is also very tight, which was another measure, by the way, that was announced in a statement by His Excellency, where the M0 growth target was reduced to 0 per quarter. It can't get tighter than that, frankly. That's very tight. So everything is in place for a stable currency, for a stable economy, for an economy that is geared towards growth. But as I said, to support, again, use of our currency, we said let's increase the IMTT tax on the US dollar as opposed to the Zimbabwe dollar. So obviously we're showing a preference there, because naturally you always want to promote your domestic currency, even though both are acceptable. As I said, we tightened as well rules around stockbrokers in terms of third-party accounts and so forth, movement of monies within these third-party accounts to again cut off the speculative behavior within the stock market. And His Excellency opened up the transportation sector for other players to join ZUBCO and ply the routes and support our citizens as they move around the country and improve mobility. And that has been well received. So and I've just highlighted some of the policies that were announced without going through the whole list. But you can see that together these policies are actually very positive policies. There'll certainly be more winners than losers out of these policies.
So just to put this issue to rest, there is no way we are going towards complete dollarization?
No. We're not going towards complete dollarization. It is not a good idea. It is also too early to move towards a complete Zim dollarization, where we say, you know what it would mean if we were to say, whenever it's now Zim dollar. It means that you cannot hold on to your forex. It will become illegal. All right. It means that banks have to liquidate their forex reserves. It means that exporters have to liquidate their foreign currency earnings almost immediately. That's what other countries do. But in Zimbabwe, we don't have that kind of normal situation in place. We have a situation where there are sanctions on the country. We also have arrears. So we don't have enough. In fact, we have really a constrained foreign credit lines. We don't have credit lines at all. We have to work hard to access credit lines. So that's not a normal situation. So we had to create literally virtual credit lines through the auction, where we are harnessing 20% from the retailers and the public in terms of surrender ratio for local transactions, but as well as the 60-40 retention system or framework that the central bank put in place. So that is supplying some foreign currency into the market of the order of about, $25 million a week. And that's what would be available in the auction. So we've created, let me call it, virtual credit lines to support the private sector. That's not for the government. The government is not going to the auction at the moment. Okay. We as government have enough of our own forex. We don't want forex from anyone else. Why? We are receiving US dollars in the form of taxes. So on the contrary, we are selling forex on the auction and giving it to the private sector. So it's all designed for the private sector. The auction is for the private sector, and it is a surrogate of virtual credit lines. So therefore, you cannot at the moment go one way and say it's Zim dollar only, for the reasons that I've explained. You also cannot go the US dollar route only and eliminate monetary policy completely, because that's what you will also be doing. It means that there is no monetary policy because you have a foreign currency that you are using and it is not yours. You have no control over it. And then we go very quickly into a situation of deflation. Very dangerous.
Is the private sector playing ball?
Well, they are benefiting. They are certainly benefiting. The reason why you see all this growth, capacity utilization, improving from dramatically, for instance, from as low as 20%, 30% a few years ago, now up to 65%. They've clearly benefited from the current policies. So clearly it is working. The introduction of the Zimbabwe dollar in 2019, February, has restored competitiveness to our industry. So really, they've benefited a lot. They should play ball.
Right, there is the issue of opening up for 6 months for importation of certain products. Is the country not running the risk of probably stopping, or won't this affect industrial growth?
Let me say three things. First of all, if you listen to the conversations globally, there's going to be a challenge going forward in terms of food security. So it's very important for us to take measures now that allow citizens to have access to other sources of basic food items, whether it's sugar, whether it's meal, whether it's rice. We're doing that also to deal in response with the global challenge that is looming. That's the first thing. The second thing, we've opened our borders also to deal with the rapid rise in basic commodity prices locally. So it's an anti-inflation measure that is designed to benefit consumers. I don't think it is also pleasant for companies to want to have consumers who are unhappy, who are always crying about prices being too high and so forth. It's also not healthy. No one wants unhappy consumers. Industry shouldn't want unhappy consumers. We all want happy consumers because they make for happy citizens. So it's designed this policy is designed to dampen the upward increase in prices so that we can improve purchasing power, we can improve access to basic commodities for our citizens. But also, at the end of the day, industry is benefiting from the duty-free raw materials that we have allowed them to bring in to manufacture goods locally. Most of these raw materials that they're importing are coming in duty-free. So they are still well supported as industry to produce effectively and efficiently. So that's my answer on that one, and that's what more motivated us. That on one hand, industry is still protected because in terms of raw materials, it's duty-free. Also, the auction and some of the policies we put in place have supported industry on the retooling program, so they're able to produce more efficiently using newer equipment. And then I've highlighted the global situation we need to deal with, including the domestic high domestic prices.
Perhaps maybe what people would want to know is what measures will be put in place to ensure that local industry remains viable in the meantime during this 6 months.
Those measures are already in place. As I explained, that we have removed a duty on some of the raw materials that the industry is bringing in to manufacture locally. Right across the board. In fact, there was even some analysts were saying that, you're giving too many tax rebates and so forth. But to me, it's not too many tax rebates. That's what is needed to support our industry. We are also supported them in terms of tax rebates for retooling, for bringing in new equipment. And there's been a lot of retooling right across a variety of sectors. So they are already protected. A lot has been done already.
Professor Ncube, people have their different opinions, which they're entitled to. Some have even suggested that why don't we as a nation join probably the Rand Union? What's your take on that?
It's complicated stuff, that. It's just as onerous as trying to join the European Union. The conditions are similar. You would first of all need macroeconomic convergence around deficits, around inflation, even around growth issues. There are so many requirements that should be in place before one joins around monetary area. That's the first thing. But second thing is that the rand is also a quote-unquote hard currency to us. So at the end of the day, it is maybe not hard currency, it is foreign currency. That's a better word. So again, you're moving, what we're doing, on one hand, you've accepted the US dollar, but you say, you know what, maybe let's accept the rand as the core currency. You're moving from one foreign currency to another. So you still haven't solved that way. You still haven't solved the fact that you need your full bouquet of macroeconomic tools, fiscal tools and monetary tools. The moment you adopt a foreign currency as your currency, you've eliminated monetary policy. Then you cannot respond to shocks. The good thing about having the full bouquet of policies is that you can respond to shocks and shock absorb those kind of shocks from outside. Most of them tend to be external shocks, by the way. So you incapacitate yourself. You saw, I don't want to go into detail and analyze countries, but I spent a lot of time in my previous life as a Vice President, Chief Economist of the African Development Bank, analyzing that the Rand monetary zone. And it's quite clear that some of the members of the zone have gone through ups and downs because of the fund that is put in place to support them in times of difficulty has actually run out of resources. It happened in the last commodity price hike crisis a few years ago. So those are some of the challenges that you have to take into account before you join a monetary zone in that way. What is ideal under the ideal situation? Currency convertibility is enough. Currency convertibility is enough. As long as you're able to convert from one currency to another easily, that is adequate. Then that we're able to retain full monetary policy and ability to respond to shocks, as well as being able to access the other currency, whatever it is, through currency convertibility arrangements.
Professor Ncube, lastly, your assurance to the people of Zimbabwe. My grandmother in Cholocho, the father in Dotito, the person right here in Harare who is seeing price hikes on the shelves almost on a daily basis. What is your assurance to the people of Zimbabwe? Do we need to buckle up for a while, or what is your last words to the people of Zimbabwe?
Yes, I want to assure Zimbabweans and all citizens that the government is committed to building confidence around our economy, to stabilizing prices, again committed to stabilizing our currency so that it retains value, it becomes as strong and stable as other currencies. We're giving you that assurance, we're giving that commitment. The policies that we've been implementing so far are designed to do that, to make sure that the economy can grow, leave no one behind in doing so, but we get to our vision and goal of being an upper middle income economy by year 2030. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you.